Okay. Before we get started, I just want to get verbal confirmation from both of you that you've given us permission to film this and release it to the archive in Arlington.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll do a brief introduction, then we'll start with you guys here. So this is a Langston Boulevard Legacy Business interview conducted by the Langston Boulevard Alliance and made possible by a historic preservation grant from Arlington County, Virginia. Today's date is June 12th. We're on location at Photoscope. My name is Bennett King, and I'm a research assistant for the Langston Boulevard Alliance. I'm joined with our narrators today. We have Andrew and Tony. I got caught by your other name there. It's with Tony Awad. Welcome to you both, and thanks for sharing your time with us. As we get started, I'd like to we'll start with you. Let's get a little information about your background, where you're from, maybe how you ended up in Arlington, how you started we'll get into the business later, but how you got to where you're at today, and then we'll get yours right up to his.
Well, it is a long story, so I'll try to skip a few steps in the process. I came here as a teenager from Lebanon. Went to the local high school for a couple of years, ended up going to George Mason University, studied engineering, and a few years into working as an engineer, I decided I want to be in a small business situation because I felt old into it.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Continuation. Andrew, now we'll talk about you. Tell us about where you're from, where you were raised.
Yep, I'm born and raised in McLean, Virginia, about 10 minutes down the road. This is just my stomping grounds, pretty much, all I've known. Obviously the home, going to Lebanon, but other than that, this has been where I've been at pretty much my whole life, so.
When did you start working in the shop here?
I think the day I got out of diapers. No. It was on and off throughout my teenage years. I was always, looking up to Dad, wanting to come to work with Dad, so it would be a couple days here and there. And then in high school is when I kind of started actually taking real shifts and working here as an actual employee instead of just coming to Dad with work. So
Great. And then how long has that been since high school?
So it's been since I graduated 2012. So I'd say I started probably in 09, 08, around that time, and then off and on. So I left for a little bit, came back, and kind of I've always come back here. But I'm here in the kind of middle of a transition, helping Pops out and trying to figure out the next steps for me.
Very cool. Thank you. Go ahead.
Has been extremely helpful in the last few months since he came back to figure out what he's trying to do. He's trying to do some other things in transition, but he had done the marketing for this place, and it has blossomed thanks to his expertise with social media and things like that.
Great to hear. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. You had gotten to the point where you graduated college, and let's talk about your start in the industry. Did you work in photography before that, and then maybe how did you transition into this
No,
business?
but I worked as a waiter during college, and figured, hey, I want to have a restaurant, preferably a pub/restaurant type situation. Being new to the business world, however, many of the management companies that had the property usually listed were not going for it. I'm a newbie to the business world, and I'm going big, even though this was not the plan originally. So they would not give me the time of day initially. So that actually was a godsend in many ways, because that made me reassess and look at things in a different way. And I learned about 1 hour photo, which is how we started. They were opening everywhere, and I said, hey, this is a good way to go. And I recognize that it is limited hours. Restaurants are longer hours, preparation before, staying after hours. So this was, you come in and you leave. Did my homework, studying everything about the business at the time, created a business plan, outline of every aspect to the business. I would have to say I was very fortunate that I hit it mostly literally on cue with a less than 5% margin error on all facets of the business.
Wow.
And this location became available, and at the time stores were not available on this corridor at all. And I didn't want to be here, it's too small. And the idea was to start, get the business running well, 2-3 years, sell it, and then migrate to a whole different category in life, in a different business, and do the same.
Yeah.
So this was available, waited a little bit longer, it was still available, I decided I'm gonna take it. So I did, and it was a blessing in many ways, because I realized that you don't need to be big, you just need to be happy.
Yeah.
And I have to say, for the last 30 plus years that we've been here, it has been incredibly awesome on many levels. I live right down the street, literally about 5 minutes away.
Oh, nice.
I can be at home with my kids when they were growing up, coach them, while keep an eye on the business and running the business. We managed to meet our numbers by the 7th, 8th month,
Wow.
which is something I was not expecting. I had plans for 2 years. But Arlingtonians, I have to say, a great community. People are wonderful. Worked in DC for 7 years before that, so it was an amazing transition when it came to engaging people. And you may have already learned a little bit about me. I'm fairly gregarious. I love people, and I love messing around with people in a fun way. So, wow, people would walk into the store and they are receiving the hello and a nice hello right back, and maybe even a little bit more conversation, which was perfect for me.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then before you know it, I am, quote unquote, stuck here because I'm loving it. So I've been here for 31 years.
And it's always been this building?
It's been this same spot right here.
Okay.
We went through many transitions in the process. We started as a 1-hour photo, which was a big deal then.
Yeah.
I was taking vacations, taking my kids places because we were doing very well. And then digital happens.
Yeah.
And when digital happened, many businesses like mine at the time were just shutting down.
Yeah.
Even the big companies like Ritz, Photo, these are companies that have over 1,000 stores, were giving up on the idea because transitioning was not easy. People were going to the internet to do things, and it's not easy to make that transition. I must say it was not easy. I mean, it took me about 4 or 5 years to reassess. So we went from having just some standard services that go along with the 1-hour photo thing. And then I realized I need to incorporate other services. And so presently we are in fact a place that, I guess if I were to sum it up, it would be a conglomerate of many services that revolve around photography and videography. And that is everything that you can think of, from digitizing to editing to scanning to printing. We even added custom framing many years ago. We obviously sell merchandise. We do photo restorations, we do lamination, and many other things that come along with that. And the answer for anybody that comes in here looking for a service, literally, almost always going to be, yes, we do it.
Yeah.
So even in the case where we don't do it, but it's relevant to what we do, we take it, we get it done, we make the client happy, and they're usually good for a lifetime, more often.
By the way, you just moved through 3 sections without me having to ask any questions. So you're
That's
doing
good.
pretty good. Yeah. So what would you, when you think about your clients that you were just discussing, what would you say that you're known for? Like, what do they? You mentioned the services you're giving, but like, if they were to describe you, what would you say? Hope and maybe think that they say about this?
Okay, that is a tough one, but I'll try to be humble.
And you don't have to be.
Well, I'll share it with you. This part of my training when I hire employees. Generally, my employees are high schoolers, sometimes college students. Rarely do I have anybody beyond that because it's a small establishment. Room for growth is limited, so I try to be very selective on who I hire, and high schoolers tend to do extremely well with us here. And it does help the community because they can walk more often, or maybe have their parents drop them off, especially when they're younger. And normally they stay with us an average of about 4, sometimes 5 years. So 2 years in high school, 2 years in college. The 3rd year in college, I actually push them to leave.
Yeah.
Because it's time to do an internship relevant to what they're doing. And I usually nurture them as best as I can in the hope that they learn some good things about the work life, and hopefully develop some better ethics on how to deal with people. So when I actually train them, I have a thing going where I set them up. And I'll say, well, you know, this is totally a service business. So we are about the client. Nothing is any different than doing everything you possibly can to make our clients are happy before they walk out of here. If they walk out in the bad mood, they must walk out with a smile. All right. So I always tell them, well, you know, it is a service business. So the customer is always, and I'll go like this. And what do you think they do every time?
Hopefully they say right.
They say the customer's always right. And unfortunately for them, I go back at them and I say, wrong. And the reason for that is because I'm trying to teach them how important it is to really have good service and take care of your clients. So I want to leave a little bit of a scar in their brain about the delivery of the message in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say, you did two things wrong. One, you spoke before I finished, because I'm going, the customer's always, before I even go like this, they're already responding to prove that they know. So I say, you always want to listen first and then speak, understand what the client wants, and then take care of their business. But the more important part is, the customer's always wrong, as long, if you allowed me to finish speaking, then you would understand. As long as we've done everything that is possibly doable to make sure their product is perfect before they walk out of here, as if we were doing it for ourselves. If you have done that, the client has no reason whatsoever to complain. But if they do, the lesson to be learned from that is they must be having a bad day. So you do not want to allow that to affect you. Instead, stay pleasant and see if you can make it a better experience so when they walk out of here, they're in a better mood. And I think it works. And may I step up and grab something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so about 5-6 years ago, one of my employees, sorry, I'm just gonna have to do this, sorry. Sure. This is funny, but I guess I have to do it.
I'll enjoy the story.
This is an employee from Yorktown High School, graduated from UVA many years ago. I was at this wedding about 6 years ago. He came in, as many employees actually visit me 10, 15 years later and so on. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had a dinner with an employee from about 16 years ago.
Wow.
He was up in town, he lives in Florida, and he came in, he said, hey, so we did that. So anyway, this young man, apparently it scarred him enough that he saw this online and he decided he has to get it for me for Christmas. So here's what you got me. So I know that he had learned a good lesson because obviously, you know, he remembered that.
Yeah.
And so service is very important to us.
Yeah.
We take a lot of pride in our reputation, and thankfully we are blessed with a very good reputation here. We, like you witnessed earlier with a client, this is our norm. When I have fairly new employees, they're confused because even if you're walking here for the first time, I'm just going to try and kid with you in a very light way because life is too short,
Yeah.
right? But I'll assert to the client every single time, we're going to do whatever we can for you and then some, and gain their trust. And that's big for us.
You mentioned, actually you showed us in the back, and we'll include that with the archives, a number of the photos of the employees. Roughly how many local teams do you think you've employed
Wow.
over the years? If you could just ballpark that.
30 years, I would say close to 80 to 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. All
And
in
that
the
30
local
years,
area.
literally everybody from the local high schools. Yeah.
It's incredible. Anybody from the family who else works here? We saw Andrew. Has
Well-
anybody else been through from the family as well?
I do have 3 kids. Andrew is the oldest. All 3 of them have worked here throughout high school and early college. As a matter of fact, the Wall of Fame in the back has all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Sporadic with the rest of the people that I have pictures of on that wall. I have been very diligent about having many of the employees we've had on that wall. It just happened to me one day. It's like, I took this picture. Let me put it somewhere. And before you know it, the idea came, let's create a little wall.
Yeah.
But perhaps after this I should consider funding the other photos, because I think it would look incredible.
It would be, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool just as it is, yeah.
I mean, yesterday I was talking to, I'll just say his name, James, a former employee that I had dinner with, and we were talking about the employees at that time. I forgot about some of them. You know, it's been so long, you know, but it was fun just kind of going back to memory lane
Yeah.
and learn about what they're doing from him.
That's really cool. Anybody else been involved through you as partners or other family
No
members?
partners
Yeah.
other than a silent partner, which is my wife tolerating long hours at times.
Well, I can't believe that might be silent. Maybe silent when you're here?
And of course, my kids. I feel, you know, having a small business is not for the light of heart.
Yeah.
You probably already know this, because it does consume quite a bit of your time. And there are times where you may have to miss some things with your kids,
Yeah.
or not be doing certain things with your kids because this is the means to make a living.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Where did the name come from? Like, how did you come up with that name? Or was it, you mentioned it was a 1 hour photo? Did it have the same name back then as it always been?
The name is the same.
Okay.
Officially with the county, the name is actually Photoscope, just like it shows on the sign. However, for the last 15 years, I've been telling people it's Photoscope Studios.
Yeah.
And I need to make it legal eventually, but I've just not had the opportunity to do that. The name came by brainstorming in the early stage of starting the business. I chimed in with some friends and family, please help me out, come up with a name.
Mhm.
And they all came up with really nice names, but they're always long. For instance, this little strip mall is called Lee Edison Shopping Center. Imagine you're going to say Lee Edison Shopping Center Photo Place or whatever the heck it is. And of course, I could say Tony's Photo Place because it sounds like it's a pizza parlor.
Yeah.
So eventually, as I processed, I had to have the word photo in it. But then it had to have some technical side to it. It may not make sense to you because even Andrew still tells me, I still don't get it. Photo, and eventually I said, telescope, you're viewing things through things, so it's photography. So let me be different, and it did rhyme well. So I said, photoscope, and son of a gun, it sounds great. And so I stuck with it.
Yeah, when I first saw the name, I was like, that sounds very technical. I wonder what they're doing in there. So
Okay, so it works.
Yeah, it does work. Okay, what you mentioned earlier, like thinking about different businesses. Was it just because, like, how did you narrow down to the photo business? Was it because the 1 hour photos were doing well? What was the catalyst
truly,
there?
there was somebody who contributed to the idea, which was a cousin of mine who owned a 1 hour photo.
Okay.
About 3 miles down the street in Lyons Village. And I used to visit him frequently to help him out after hours for me. And he one day says, why don't you and I kind of join forces when we open this big monster center? We'll conquer the whole area. I looked at him, I said, I can't do that. I have 3 brothers. So if I'm gonna team up with somebody, it's gonna be one of the brothers first. You know, that's just the way our culture works. And I really didn't want to have a partner. So I said, are you okay with me doing a similar business a few miles up the street? He goes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was the,
Total is $26.50.
that's where I got the idea from.
So let's talk about, you mentioned it briefly, let's talk about that transition. I mean, obviously, they're almost 32 years now, you said.
We will start 32 in a week from now.
So the digital transition has been what, 15, 20 years now?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the transition, how that happened, the difficulties, how you succeeded past that. Can you give us a little bit of the struggle and how you got past it?
As I was saying earlier, many of the businesses similar to mine at the time, the 1 hour photo, were shutting down everywhere. Competition from the internet with lower pricing and quicker, easy everything. I had to make a decision. Do I bail and do something else? And I have plenty of options at the time. But then, or staying with this business and see what I can do. It was a difficult decision. I felt like I was letting go of a baby or a child,
Yeah.
so I couldn't let it go. So I reassessed, and I started by adapting to the digital world by having the first hybrid machines, which were optical / digital
Yeah.
for printing people's pictures. I probably was the first one in the area to do that. And that kind of contributed to the coming back slowly, but then there was a major dive after that for most of the businesses similar to mine. That's when I realized to add other services that were usually equivalent to 5 to 10% of the businesses, like the added services. The funny part is, those are the services today that are the mainstream part of the business, and they're the ones that are keeping this business moving.
What would you say those are, just so we have that?
Absolutely. We have the posters on the wall for some of these services, like in the good old days, the 1 hour photo, which was the big deal, that is, people would walk in, somewhere between 80 to 100 people a day bring and film in, and that was the main business. And we would have photo restorations, maybe printing from slides or older negatives, photo restorations. Those were like a couple here, a couple there. Now we do a lot of scanning and digitization of basically people's lives and memories.
Yeah.
They bring us their slides from the 50s, 40s, 60s, albums, negatives, because they cannot view them. So they need to have them digitized. So we are set up perfectly for that, and we do probably the best work compared to anybody else around us. And there's not many places that do it, at least locally.
Yeah.
Like I said, we do it with a lot of TLC, and the idea is to make the client extremely happy with the product, with the service, and everything else that they've encountered with us. And we find that they routinely tell their friends and family, and before you know it, we're seeing all these new faces coming in. Yeah.
It looked like you were doing some photo improvements back there, like
Photo
a
restorations,
photo
absolutely, yes.
restoration. That's so. Is that all done?
Andy was doing that, yes, and maybe I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that that's a big part of the business?
That's a big
Yeah.
one as of the last few years, for
Yeah.
sure.
It is, yeah.
Maybe we can get a picture of that, Cindy, while you're here. They've got it up on the monitor back there. Okay, Andrew, I wanted to follow up with you.
Sure.
I asked him while you walked away. I asked him to say, how would customers describe this business? You grew up in the neighborhood, so you had friends coming here, I would assume, or
Yes.
had family. So what did you hear? Like, what did you know other people thought about this place as you were growing up?
I mean, to tell you the truth, from like my friends and stuff, it's kind of, I mean, it's a family-run business, so we kind of try to treat everybody,
Yeah.
for the most part, like they're a family, or at least a very good friend, you know, at the very
Yeah.
least. And I mean, friends that come by, even people who aren't friends and have heard of us through, you know, a customer who knew someone who told somebody or something like that. I think we're, I don't know, like a very just family-centered, you know, part of the community, try to give back as much as possible, and I kind of sort of lost track of the question there for a second.
No, you answered most of it.
Okay, awesome. My brain kind of drifted there for a moment.
We'll edit that out.
Yeah.
No, I was really asking, like, what did you hear growing up, and what did people think about? And I think you answered, like, it's a family business. People knew that, like, and that's what I wanted.
Perhaps you should share with them the reaction of the majority of people when they walk in here to pick something up, and what I say, or what. Please do share that story.
I guess he's talking mainly with restorations. We do pretty fantastic work, if I say so myself. And so whenever, you know, customers come in with their old, torn, faded photos and stuff like that, we tell them, hey, we can definitely make it look a lot better. And you know, most people don't expect what we deliver. So then when we do finally go and open up that envelope and show them what we've done, it's always just like a, whoa, my God, like, oh wow, this is wonderful. And anytime any one of those keywords gets thrown out, his favorite thing to do is be like, oh, they said wonderful, you got to double the price, or like, oh, they said it looks great, you got to triple it, or something along those lines.
That's not how I do it, though. I usually say, well, they used one of those words, and I said, you didn't see the list of words on the door that you cannot use? And they look, and I said, well, you said wow, and wow, and I look at Andrew and say, is that double the price or triple the price? So we like to get around with our people. We like to keep it light, you know. You know, just a little kind of crazy humor, but.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit. We've talked about some of the changes you faced over the years. Sounds like this digital was a struggle as well. Any other struggles you faced along the way? Like, let's talk about COVID. That's obviously, there was a shutdown here, so let's start with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in 31 years, I think we've had 2 downturns. The first one was the digital, and the second one, like most businesses, if not all businesses, is COVID. When COVID happened, I had to really look seriously at the business and contemplate over the idea of shutting down.
Yeah.
Because rents is still going to be there, the cost of everything else is going to be there, but 3-4 years of not doing anything, that did hurt many businesses, and it did the same to us. But fortunately for me, I was always very clever about saving money and keeping myself safe. It's very important to kind of keep yourself in a place where you're not going to be in any kind of jeopardy even when things go bad. So we decided, or I decided, I'm going to push right through. And of course we had the PPP, which we didn't get much compared to many places, being a small business, but that kind of helped a little bit. And right there and then I knew that I should stay in business, because the most beautiful thing happened as we started to open up from COVID as businesses. I had a number of clients walking in here to write checks to us because they want to keep us in business.
Wow.
I rejected many of them. I think I was telling James that yesterday. I think I accepted 2 because they were relentless about it. And they're not like incredible sums, but just the thought behind it to demonstrate what a beautiful community we're in, and to confirm that we are making people happy. And that is a big deal for us, at least for me. It's always a big deal that people are content. And that's true not only here in business, in life I am that individual. But
that's an incredible story. That's pretty cool that they did that for you.
Yeah.
Any other struggles you faced? Oh, before we get to that, like what was the restart like? What did you have to do to get going again? Like what was required of you in this type of business?
I would say we focused on the services, like the things that we felt are going to be good for the business. And COVID actually taught me that, because with COVID, people didn't want to be interacting, but they have the time to sit at home and look at all these boxes of slides, negatives, and albums. And if they just come in, drop it off, and leave, and come back 3 weeks later because they had a few thousand images to digitize, then they would do that. And before you know it, we would have maybe 1 client every week in the beginning, but that client would be a large order. And we decided that's what we should hone in on, and we started to market that a little bit, and then it just blossomed. And that really contributed to us staying here.
Very cool. It was funny, we heard that from KH too. Like there was so many people looking at things at home that they just wanted to take care of them. Like for the first time in years, they wanted to do something with them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So then after that was a transition back to, do you still do a lot of the big orders, or did you transition?
Always.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's not for the big orders and they are routinely coming in, I would say we would probably not survive for too long.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other struggles you guys face besides those 2? Any other ones you want to mention?
Nothing that I can think of. These are the 2 things that we had to tackle in the process of the years that we were in business. I tend to be a very easygoing guy. Don't allow, I know you said struggles, I call them hurdles. And I truly call them hurdles in life, because life is going to have all kinds of hurdles. And they're simply challenges, so you just put your mind right to it and figure out, do you go around it, do you go right through it, or do you ignore it and go to something else? So that's my usual process of thought. So I am not usually down easy in general. So that has contributed a great deal for us to be still doing what we're doing.
Well, then in that case, we get to talk about the fun part, which is success, or what do you see as this? And I'll ask both of you, I'll ask you to think about while we're talking to him about it. What do you think of your greatest successes, your greatest accomplishments here?
The successes, if I were to come up with a couple of thoughts on that, would be that we've managed to stay in business. We are looking to push a little bit more with our marketing, something that I talked about for years, but I never would pursue because our business was mostly word of mouth. Honestly, for the first 20 years, I did marketing the first maybe 2 or 3 years, and after that I kind of just stopped because it seems like it was not needed. With the downturn with the digital as well as COVID, I'm like going, I need to do more. I need to let people know that we're still here and we do this and we do this. So we slowly started to do that, and a great deal of it came from Andrew doing different things to highlight the services and let people know. So successes, I would say the successes that we're still in business. Love being here, learned a lot of things, met some amazingly beautiful people in the process. If anything, this business taught me humility on a deeper level, just meeting the different people out there.
That's cool. Thinking about it as like, from your point of view, what do you see as?
I mean, I would probably echo a lot what he was saying, and kind of to touch back on sort of what happened during COVID with people coming in and kind of trying to offer to help, or even trying to find some photos and stuff at home to bring in just to give us some kind of work. I think one of the bigger successes, not really business, but like being known in the community and having people kind of love us. And like, I mean, if you go on to Nextdoor, for example, and like you search Photoscope, you'll see people recommending us left and right, people that love us and will swear by us. So I think that right there is kind of like a good indicator of a success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I looked at the map today, Google stars on you guys, they were just rave reviews on the first several of them.
Yes.
You checked us out before you came in?
I was looking at the map. I was looking at where you guys were, and then it's like got the reviews under it. I'm like, well, they're doing pretty good. That's pretty high rated. Okay, let's talk a little. You started with this a little bit. Thinking about like presenting this to people in the future or even other businesses. And I'll ask you this separate too. I want to ask you this as lessons you've learned here, but let's start with you. What lessons have you learned through this business? And you talked about humility, but what are some of the lessons that you've learned over this almost 32 years?
This reminds me of a question when I was looking for jobs a long time ago. What are your weaknesses? And it is a kind of a trick question. This is kind of hitting, in a sense, the same way. I can answer it from different perspectives. Boy, rephrase that for me one more time,
Yeah,
so I don't fall victim to the trick question.
Well, I think of this as more as an advice question. If you had another small business owner coming in here now, they're just getting started. It doesn't have to be this business. If you attend one of the biz launch events and somebody's asking you what's your secret to success or what have you learned that could help me in business, what are some of those things that you've learned over the years that you might share with somebody else?
Well, you have to understand your business. You have to understand your clients, and you have to be truly willing to give them what they're asking for and then some. In other words, if they ask for something to look good and they're happy with that, they don't know the difference. We have people that come in here and they look at photos and they say, this looks great, I just want a copy of this. And we look at it and we say, well, this is not really great. If you want to see great, we can do it and let you see it, and then you can decide if you want to spend another $20 to get it to be great.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not easily understood because they're looking at a photo they've had for a long, long time. To them, it's an emotional connection.
Yeah.
And to them, this is great. So we take a couple of minutes, we do a few things in the back, we ask them to come around, and we put the two images on the screen for them. And usually it's a wow or amazing and yes, I want it. So we always like to exceed and we take people's lives seriously. This is very personal business, a lot of things about people's lives. When we are digitizing, restoring, we want to make sure it is done perfectly or as close to perfect as possible, because chances are that new product they have is going to go through the next generation and the next generation.
Yeah.
And if it's not done right, we have failed our clients. Whether they see it or not is irrelevant. We have to see it.
Yeah.
And so that is very important to us.
Okay.
So I guess if I've learned anything from the business, and what I would echo to other people would be to truly love what you do and always keep up with your business. Move. Do not stay in one place in the business. Always grow, always add different things, because that's the only way you're gonna enjoy what you're doing and wanna do it and do it right for the clients.
And I'll ask it to you a different way. So you said you're moving on to different transitions. What have you learned here? What are the lessons you've learned that you'll take into life?
It's kind of tough because I mean I've definitely learned a lot about business. I've also learned kind of just a lot about life. Being that I work with my dad. When you're at home, you don't really want to take any advice from your dad. You don't want to listen to your dad. But when you're cooped up for 8 or 9 hours a day, 6 or 5 or 6 days a week, I think that's kind of helped break down that father-son barrier to where now I can listen to his advice. Coming from a fatherly side of things, but I can kind of take it and actually listen and not just be like, oh, I don't want to hear you out and whatever. So it's mainly been just like learning how to treat people, learning to put out the best product, even if, like he was saying, even if the client doesn't necessarily know the difference, you want to show them the difference, and then that way they'll be, accustomed to something better. So I think that's kind of a couple of things that I've picked up.
Those are very valuable things. So, I mean, it's great to learn them early. Okay, so we're going to transition this a little bit. You had talked about, earlier you had talked about the community. So this section I want to talk about, a little bit more about the neighborhood, the people around us. What was it like when you started here? Like, this is 32 years ago. This was probably a little bit different. How has it changed, maybe, or what was it like then, and how has it changed over the years?
Well, I would say the changes have been everywhere, not just here. From the type of people that have been moving into the area, this is a very transient area. So you got the government agencies, you got everybody else in the country from the West Coast all the way through wanting to come into the East Coast for jobs, for the things that are available to us here that may not necessarily be available in many other places. You got an international community with all the embassies. And so there's a great flood of people coming to our area as it is blossoming into possibly, at least not necessarily right here, but I know Tyson's Corner, the new New York in a sense. And even in Arlington, some parts of it is kind of getting to that level. So there's a new life almost into the area with the numbers of all these people coming into our area.
Has that changed the business? Have the people changed and the business changed because of
I'm going
it?
to share a silly story with you. So at the end of this strip right here, there's a restaurant presently called Arlington Kebab. For the 30-some years, we've had at least a dozen people go in there to have a restaurant run out of that location. No success. They would not make it. I don't know why, but then a lovely lady started the business as Arlington Kebab, and they are doing incredibly well because they are taking care of their customers. Very important, kind of like how we feel about our clients and customers. Good product, but parking is limited, and the landlord says you only have 2 slots. But the restaurant, when it's lunchtime or dinner time, they take the whole parking lot, people picking up. Because of COVID, people now pick up far more than they used to. And they even fill up the parking lot in the back. So what happens? They take my 2 only available spots, making it difficult for my clients to come in. And my clients will come in usually fairly quickly, in and out, under a minute, sometimes maybe a few more minutes. In and out. When there's no place to park, they just leave. So for the longest time, I'm like going, this is not going to help my business. Well, since Andrew decided to add some of these posters and do different things, people that are coming up to park, they're seeing these posters, and now the negative side of the war in the parking lot right there, all of a sudden has a positive side to it, which is people are seeing the things, saying, they do this service. They do video conversions, they do scanning of this, and before you know it, they're walking in. So that alone, a very simple thing, diffused all the problems with the parking. For me, my neighbor would probably feel differently, but for us here, I think it has, in fact, started to work differently since the changes they had made.
Has the clientele changed? Are you? Let me ask a couple things. You've been here long enough that you must see generations of people now. I
Yes.
assume. Like, are you still seeing that? Has the clientele changed? Is there any difference in the type of people maybe that are coming or what they're coming for? What they're coming for, I think we know they've changed, but
What do you think, Andrew?
I mean, I think we've always kind of had a pretty diverse group of people that come through. I wouldn't say it necessarily changed. Yeah.
We have a lot of old clientele. Not only age-old clientele, but clients that have been coming to us for years, many generations.
Mhm.
Their children also end up coming over here if they're still in the local area. There's definitely a flood, I would say, of new clients because there's a lot of new people moving into the area. So we're seeing also a lot of new clients, which is a big plus for us.
that's not a bad thing, is
Yeah.
it? Yeah. Okay. So I want you to, you had talked a little bit about this earlier. I want you to talk about this community and what it means to you, and just tell us what you think about the community and what's important about this community.
My favorite thing is usually my employees because they are from the local community. And I really go all out on explaining every facet of the business. Most business owners would not share many of the things that I share with my employees. They're young and I feel they need to learn a lot of things, so I explain and delve deep with them on that. As far as the community, again, without them, we would not even exist. They are definitely returning the favor, and then some absolutely wonderful people in the area.
You grew up here in McLean?
McLean.
Okay, so what did you think about this neighborhood maybe growing up, like compared to McLean even?
I mean, it's definitely changed since I was, a little boy. I guess you would say improved. Everywhere, not just here. They're building up places, trying to expand, clean things up, make things look a little better. But yeah.
I may jump in there a little bit. I know we have the Langston corridor. 30 years ago, it was not the same as it is today. There was a larger number of black folks living in the background right over here because of, I'll call it gentrification, but not necessarily so. People are just, buying and moving. They've sold, moved somewhere else. It's a whole different look to the county for this side behind us. There's still some families that have been there for generations. They're still there, and hopefully they'll still be there. But the demographics have definitely changed in Arlington, at least for this particular area.
Yeah, we talked to some, in the last project we did, we talked to some of the older families in Halls Hill there. It was really interesting to hear their stories, and I do hope they stay as well. There's a lot of history
I think
there.
it's important for some of them to stay anyways, because many of them are selling. And there's economic reasons as to why some people move out. When you have a home that you inherited from your grandparents, and now the house is easily over $1 million, and you are maybe struggling, or you want to live life on a different level, you do what you need to do. And so people have done that, not only here, many similar places.
So let's talk about the Langston. You just mentioned that Langston Boulevard changed. Did that affect the business any? Like, were there any struggles that came, or hurdles that came from the name change, or did it affect your business in any way?
I'm going to say no negative change. Did it change in the positive way? Based on what I just shared with you, I think that still is the same, in the sense that people are looking for services. If they find the right place and they're happy with it, they become loyal clients, and so it's important to make them happy.
So not too much impact on the business.
I wouldn't say we were impacted, in a bad way at all with the changes.
Okay. Okay, so last question here. Why would you say long-lasting businesses like this, these legacy businesses, family-owned businesses, why are they important to communities like the corridor here?
Because it is home to a lot of these folks. I mean, we live only a few minutes away in a different city, but literally 5 minutes away, so might as well be here. But I personally have spent a great majority of my life right in this nice little quaint, humble place, 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for the last 30 years with some exceptions. So this feels like home. I feel like I'm definitely part of the community here. If I were to go shopping to, say, Harris Theater down the street or the Safeway, I almost want to avoid them because
You're too
I
famous.
forget what I went for. And it doesn't help that I am, you know, a touch gregarious and I enjoy people. So, if I see somebody that I know, I'm going to say hello. I may shock them. It's like, oh yeah, you were the guy from the photo place.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I recognize you, so I'm going to say hello. So that is important to me, and that's what I love about the community here particularly.
As you've seen it through the years, like how would you, being part of a family-owned business, why would you say it's important to a community to keep these types of businesses around?
It's kind of just like like the friendly face, you know, the consistency. A lot of people don't like change. A lot of people are comfortable knowing and being known. So I think having a few places that remain for, more than a couple years, more than 5, 10, 20 years, it makes people feel comfortable. It's like you said, it's home. You're used to it.
A small town effect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of knowing someplace and being known is such a reoccurring theme. Like just to have kind of, and not only like you were saying, like it is a home. Safe place is another thing we've heard. With all the people we've been talking to along the corridor, is this kind of same common theme, which I think you guys are hitting the nail on the head with that. I think that's why it's so important to keep the businesses around. Any other last thoughts you'd like to add, or anything you'd like to get on the video?
Got it. I'm a young guy. So I hope that I will be able to stay here for the next few years.
Yeah.
God willing, that things continue going the way they have been going. And we'll continue to have the energy and the will to maintain the same feel that we like to kind of share with our people around. I think we would be good.
Yeah, that's great to hear that. And so you do want to stay. You want to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, everybody wants to retire early, right?
Yeah.
But taxes are going to get you. So that's not necessarily likely. But just to stay active, we'd like to keep the business running for another few years. Maybe I'll be able to convince Andrew to reconsider some things, but who knows? Remains to be seen. Now, the only aspect that going back to earlier, is we are in a very busy part of Arlington. Real estate is very expensive, so therefore rent is very high. So in my way of thinking, if the landlord decides they're going to jump the price, and they do routinely, it can go sometimes a little bit beyond a normal understanding because they understand the value of the property. That hopefully will not contribute to us leaving sooner than we want to, but we keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. Any other questions you guys have? Well, thank you guys very much. I'll go ahead and turn off the video.